personally, I think the auctions are actually more signaling to the success of the system because that actually pays yield out to the staker. So I'd love to like, why do you think it's about the buybacks?
I love it. I'm glad to be able to talk to you, man. Well, yeah. So I think that the HSI buybacks are needed and important for Hedron and Icosa because the HSI buybacks are needed for auctions. Period. Basically, right now. We have the ability for liquidations off of borrowing. That's not happening because the Hedron price is too low to make borrowing worth it. So the only way that we have in my opinion, one of the main ways we have of addressing the Hedron inflation, which is happening every day. New hex stakes are being created and old stack. Any hex stake right now is creating Hedron. It's continuing for Hedron to do well long term, which is what I want for the projects. Hedron inflation has to be addressed. The inflation basically has to be continuing at a rate that is slower than adoption, right? And so I basically see the HSI buybacks as a very core part of the health of Hedron and Icosa. If we don't have HSIs going back through the HSI buyback, we don't have auctions. If we don't have auctions, we've lost one of the main addressers to the Hedron inflation. And also, if we don't have auctions, we don't have the Hedron that's burned turning into Icosa. And that Icosa, of course, goes to the yield, which is the reason, one of the main reasons for having Icosa is that you get yield when you stake it. And it all seems to come down to right now, the way the contract's set up and the situation we're in, HSI buybacks are one of the main things that I'm looking to see the health of Hedron and Icosa long term. If we don't have this continual process of HSIs going through, we're not burning Hedron, we're not getting yield in our pools. And I think that at the same time that we have continuing inflation. And I think for me, I want to see as much of the HSIs go through the auction as or go through the HSI buyback as possible. It's going to lead to I'm talking in circles, but it's going to lead to more Hedron being burned, and we need to burn Hedron. I think.
Can I add
So let
something
me
too,
so let me ask
real
you
quick?
this on a macro level, what do you think is better for the system as a whole, recycled HSIs or newly created HSIs that are then sold back? Because if you understand how the price ceiling of Icosa works, the price only goes up if Hex goes up. And by design, both Hedron and Icosa were designed to incentivize people to stake Hex. So in my opinion, I personally think new HSIs rather than recycled HSIs actually push the system forward much faster than whales rebuying in because also I'm doing an analysis on this breakdown because this is a great example. It happened yesterday. It's like, okay, this whale just got this amount of Icosa for this buyback. If they keep doing that on the system, does that outweigh that? Does that dilution outweigh the yield that everyone's earning? And that's like a really important thing that everyone should be looking into. And again, I personally think that the more drive to create new HSIs, buying Hex, creating HSIs to then sell is much better as a whole. What are your thoughts?
I agree with you. I think ideally, what if we're going to recycle through the HSI buyback, the more new hex stakes that haven't been through it, that's even better. The more we're incentivizing new hex stakes to be max length, the better for hex and Hedron and Icosa. To me, but the system will continue regardless of if they're new HSIs or current. And I want to see both go through, just because I think we have a lot of Hedron that needs to be addressed, and I see that like I agree with you that ideally it would be new hex stakes, like that's the best there could be, but we need it, period. And recycling old is addressing the biggest problem of Hedron and Icosa, I think.
Yeah, respectfully, I disagree with. I mean, again, I think it really comes down to the numbers. If that dilution of the staking pool for Icosa outweighs the benefits of the yield produced by recycling, that would be really interesting to look at. But again, like I think people are overestimating like poly. Poly's a one-time thing. It's going to have a bid period through the launch of these liquidation auctions, but like this isn't the end of this system, right? Like it's going to continue. There's going to be new HSIs, new systems in the future. So to me, it's kind of like, how do we encourage more people to stake new HSIs rather than recycling, and that benefits both Hedron and Hex and Icosa all in one. So I don't know. I personally, I've been really trying to understand this recycle theory on why it's good for the system. I think people look at it and say, oh, this is going to pay me more yield, people that are recycling this. But at the same time, we just saw, like, you get diluted every time a whale rebuys their stake that no one else could buy. Way big, getting way more Icosa for the buybacks, bigger than small HSI's buybacks. So it's like, how is that? How is that truly? Does that
Right.
truly benefit everybody?
Well,
Can I
I
weigh
agree with you.
Can I weigh in
Go
slightly?
for it, executioner. Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that even from the very beginning, on the educational understanding of like the game theory of Icosa staking in the first place, is that there's this add function on it for you to add to the stake, and a possibility of making another wallet. So that way you can have a smaller term of your minimum on this other wallet that you'd utilize as like an engine to create a bigger money printer, right? A bigger piece of mining equipment on the ones where you can lock in a share rate early on probably your bigger chunk, right? When you come in at first, you start your money printer in a good solid state and use your other wallets to be able to create a bigger mining piece of equipment for Icosa. And to have that add function would suggest that when somebody did use the buyback function, which is part of the same protocol, and comes into the staking like part of the protocol, and locking it up, taking away sell pressure at that time, that it would incentivize the rest of the community to also build their printer, right? Build their mining equipment so they can continue to keep mining as well. And seeing that they're being diluted would incentivize them to do such things and figure out how the protocols work by maybe having to use that add function and not caring about the minimum of that, right? Like as if somebody was to have like a 5 or 10-year term on one wallet that they just had as their plan, right? Using other wallets with smaller terms to be able to extract value and use that however they'd like, right? There is some game theory to be able to have this type of initiative when it comes to the other side of what's all happening between Hedron and Icosa and Hex all together, how it all works together. Having the buyback function, recycled or not, is an interesting theory. It's an interesting game to get people even into it immediately if they'd like, right? And start playing the game and start working on this mining equipment that they have available to start doing this, right? And earn rewards every day. Then with the auctions coming through, if you're a Hedronian, it gives you an incentive to be a part of 2 different types of communities already, to get involved with the staking protocol and have your token on that side being lessened on its own inflation. Like actually have a burning protocol that actually incentivizes the community to burn their own asset. It's not SA's asset that's technically not circulating because it's not like selling it on market. It's not the OA because they're not selling on market. So there's a whole bunch of Hedron that's shouldn't even really be calculated as something that's bothersome to the system in the first place as a community. So then you can cut out damn near 55 trillion of the asset right there, half of it, right? And then the people who have capabilities of being able to participate is not as vast and grand as you would assume that it was when you put yourself into that mindset. So you get into the staking protocols, you're able to get in there and start burning Hedron, where the Icosa staking protocol every day at 000 UTC looks at the Hedron protocol and says, how much Hedron did you burn? And then each individual pool, which is the Icosa pool, the Hedron pool, and the Watsa pool, all calculate a minting phase of dependent on how much Hedron was burned. Hedron was burned that previous day. So after you get everyone under the same understanding of how all these things work, which does take amount of education, which we have a lot of stuff for people to look at, then you would get the understanding that you would want to stake. You would want to have this to stake. That's probably why I would suggest that the majority of the Icosa is actually staked, in comparison to what's liquid. I think there's like 17, 18 million Icosas staked versus the 600,000 that's just sitting there liquid. So it is a great incentive, obviously, based on the current data, which will get all shuffled out as inflation events happen throughout the next year and is handed to these people who understood how the protocol was supposed to work. So in a way, like I do see Poly as a good opportunity for people who may see the ease of use of it by not having to participate but still participate is good, in that respect. Now, I do understand, and that's fine. Everything that you guys have done, from Maxi all the way through the perpetuals to even this poly thing, it's going to have the opportunity to lock up a bunch of Hedron and kind of help fix that type of situation, at least for a while, with the burning stuff, right? If you're locking it up for long periods of time, great, that's cool. If your intention is to lock it up in the Icosa protocol, in the Hedron staking pool to earn Icosa, then I'm going to consider you guys a part of the community in a totally different way, right? So now you guys are involved. Like you're stuck, right? You guys are now, no matter what happens, you guys are now gaining part of the asset. And so now you have an incentive as a community member now at that point in time to maybe build something like what you had just suggested at the beginning of your statements, something that would incentivize the stakers. And what that would be to incentivize the auctions and the burning of Hedron. And the best way to participate in that is to somehow, some fucking way, wrap our heads around figuring out how to incentivize the buyback protocol to get more HSIs put back in there. Regardless of already having the understanding of when price moves around, that yes, arbitrage is going to happen. And somebody's probably going to make a new HSI at that time and then take advantage of that and sell some of the Icosa off. Big deal, right? No big deal. Now we've got more auction availability of new HSIs that are getting funneled in, way more than what was happening before. So that's pretty good. What would be really cool is, like, Maxim had made a pretty good point earlier about some of these HSIs that are coming up to auction are huge, right? Like 12,000 T-shares, like 14 million hex that was in it, like whatever the minimums are on that. If somebody wins that, then the inflation that'll go to them could be like 300,000 Icosa, right? And who knows what they're going to do, right? That, as a community member, it's almost like, what are they going to do? Are they going to sell it on market, right? And like hurt the price and pull the parity away from each other at that point in time? Like, and then how long does it take for the price to get back up? Like, it'll give people data and stats that they're maybe looking for to be able to gauge how successful everything's going to be. But if Poly had some sort of initiative, now being community members, to know that to get those ones off of the market and be the holders of those ones and not allow for buyback stuff to happen and that type of inflation to go to big entities, would be kind of fucking cool. I mean, really, to be like a protection of sorts, in that generalized understanding of that type of inflation, and handing it over to one individual might be worthwhile bidding on in a particular way versus any other HSIs that are out there.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think we were chatting yesterday in the chat, just about, future contracts to, and I'm fully with you. I think, and this goes to Maxim's point as well. Buybacks do drive auctions, right? Like that is needed. I think I have a disagreement that I think recycled HSIs are positive, but overall, like, yeah, I would love in the future to drive more buybacks for sure, because that helps all product. I think Poly's definitely kind of, like, challenged a paradigm kind of from the introduction of Icosa, like what people thought, or how it should be used, and it's kind of radically challenged that. But overall, I think it's a huge net positive for this community. When you look at what our stake pools did for Hex, some people weren't happy that it made Hex stakes more fungible. But we, through our launches, we've now staked over 1 billion Hex, which is huge for the price of Hex, for and locking it up for a long time. But people weren't too happy about what they thought Hex was. We kind of challenged that.
Can I
But
ask a quick question while you're?
These launches, let me finish real quick. These launches create a very exciting time that people want to jump in, and it drives participation from people that may not have otherwise done so. And really, like, when you look at the benefits for these small stakers, it's hard to deny that owning a huge, multiple huge HSI stakes isn't better than buying, really small HSI stakes that you could, I mean, it wouldn't make sense to hold to maturity, but you could sell them back for Icosa. But when you look at like what's better for that person and then the gas fee savings for them, there's a lot there, right? But again, I personally think that the excitement that Poly is driving towards Hedron, like to buy Hedron and to participate in this stake, and then also locking up all these tokens for probably 15 years, takes a lot of that inflation problem that we were talking about earlier off the table. And yeah, sorry, Jawa, if you wanted to hop in.
Yeah, I just want to ask, like, how long did Hex run, like, unmolested before, like, anything else came out on top of it? I guess that's my argument, is that we'll never know how this would perform without something being built right directly on top of it before we even got the first auctions out. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yeah, but these auctions are going to continue forward. Like Poly's not going to be participating in the future. So, once Poly's done bidding, you're going to get to see what the market does on its own. And what if Poly actually drove way more market participation in these auctions than otherwise, right? Like there's two sides of that. But again, we'll know, and whenever the bid phase for Poly's done, it's back to and then honestly, I think like the reason that this is so exciting right now is because people were anxious to get into Icosa early, so they hopped in day one, right? They participated in the buybacks. People wanted to hop in, but now that's kind of gone. So what's going to drive people to want to do these buybacks? And honestly, that's kind of a problem that like we should come up with a solution to like encourage more people to be creating HSI stakes and because again, I don't remember who mentioned this, but we are on the same team now. We were already like supporting Hedron because Hedron backs Maxi and team. Now we're supporters of Icosa as well. So our minds are in this on how to bring more adoption to encourage people to drive the price up. So I really think like we're in this for a long time now because we're all trying to push this thing forward.
Yeah, I would just be careful with the mentioning about a whale, just mentioning a whale coming in and then having like a big HSI and then taking that and then staking it and participating and becoming a community member and using the protocol like we would suggest anybody that we onboarded to do is like just pretty much like describing what the reality of what's going on here and then putting like a negative connotation over it when the protocol that you're building is going to have a large position in the Hedron staking pool potentially, right? Like if your executors aren't as successful as you'd like for them to be, then you could potentially have a lot of leftover Hedron that will be now, other words, staked into the Hedron staking pool, diluting the people that are currently in that pool, just like you would have described somebody using the protocol like by making a big HSI and then using the protocol and staking it in the Icosa pool and diluting those people. You see what I'm saying?
Right, but what's different though is that we aren't utilizing the minimum stake length with the giant Hedron stake. That stake would be 15 years long. So that Icosa, seriously imagine the buy pressure that's taking off the system. Like compared to a whale that maybe is staking Icosa, they hit a year mark, they dump, and then that like really compare that to the system of every year a whale dumping. Now this whale is going to hold for 15 years. Who knows where Icosa and Hedron and Hex even is going to be in 15 years? But like that's a long time to be taking Icosa yield off the market, and honestly that should be a good thing. Like
I can't argue.
inflation, it's like it's not a good thing. You don't want a hyperinflationary system because then people will just dump their tokens all the time. So any way to like pull just like everyone understands the value of staking because it removes buy pressure. So and why the Hex community so love people to do max length stake because that's a very long time to be taking that off the market. And that same principle applies here.
I would agree. I would agree with that as well. Like I have to put myself in the mindset, at least when I speak about these other things that are happening, is that they're happening regardless. And I need to have an understanding as a community member to what it is exactly that's happening and what those positives and negatives are for even the smallest, newest member that's coming into this community. And when they have questions about what it is that's being built called Poly, they don't exactly always come to your guys' chat. So I have to have a definitive, like, extensive amount of evidence in what's really actually happening for that community member that comes here, and some sort of, reasoning for them that it would be calculable for them to be involved with this community also, right? And just kind of have it I guess in my sense, I have to be as neutral as I possibly can to not sway someone's position on the matter, because I get asked specifically, like, how do I feel about certain things? And it's like, I'm not good enough to make up shit. So I would rather just be really knowledgeable and be very realistic about what it is when a centralized community pools together and decides to get involved, and what we can do with the understanding of who those people are, and try to benefit together, knowing that it's already going to happen. People are going to get involved regardless, right? I think we all know that. That there is, even if you're to be swinging at the air, eventually you'll hit something, right? I mean, in the terms of like trying to fight it or some stupid shit, or make outlandish claims to try to sway people's position about Poly in some sort of negative type of way, is just meaningless. There's pointless to do. So like, I do take the position that we're all community members now, because these things are going to happen. People will participate in some sort of way because they'll see an incentive from it, and that the way that we can all benefit from it now, to make sure that the positions gain as much available asset capability that they can to reward everybody that's involved in participating in these things all together, is the auctions being successful, period.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm with you. And I completely understand where you're coming from, and for what you do for this community. I know you're always, adminning this chat. Same with Jawa, and I appreciate you guys answering, questions as best you can about Poly. I want to be a resource to you guys as well, and answer questions. And I haven't been as involved on Telegram as I have in the past, and so we've kind of mainly been on Twitter. But yeah, I mean, I just want you guys to know, like, my goal over the next, 10 days is to get as much buy demand on Hedron to participate in the auctions. Like that's my sole goal. And so I'm gonna be out there, and like I love that. Truly, I think that Hedron and Maximus coming together is like truly a powerful duo, and we were already pretty intertwined just with our products, and like the timing of Hedron coming out, we were able to integrate that with Maxi, and then utilize Hedron through our other products as well. And this is just the start, right? Like we've already been talking about how do we improve further upon this in the future to create machines that really drive the system even further that any of us thought was possible. And that's where I'm coming from. I love both Hedron and Icosa, and I love Hex, and I love Maximus, and I'm passionate about it. Like I really want to drive this forward. I feel like I'm very fortunate to be within this community, and like the truly the stuff that's going on right now is the most innovative stuff I've seen hit the blockchain, truly, and just how these systems are developing and benefiting each other. It's really exciting, and so and it's really just the beginning, right? Like Hedron and Maxi, like it hasn't even been a year yet, and we've already launched like a lot of great products, and have PulseChain is going to come out, and we're going to keep moving forward. But it's very very fortunate for all of us to be here together, and very excited for the future.
Yeah, we need more reasons for people to be incentivized to actually participate more, like to stake, to end their Hedron stakes, right? Because generally, if you have to stake quite a bit of Hedron, and your minimum staking length is only like 90 fucking days, right? So getting that 5% bonus, if you play it right, then because the only yield for that is Icosa. So the way to play that whole pool and that whole game is to utilize the lesser term of minimum staking length on that one to build the mining equipment that's sitting next to it in the Icosa pool as much as you possibly can as an individual. So as people realize that they could use that buyback function over a period of time, getting a lot of Icosa yield, I would like to see a lot more volume going across the Icosa hex pair, of people realizing how much more hex they can get by being incentivized to participate with these protocols, and having the auctions going where it's burning Hedron, and Hedron looks a little bit more enticing because it's actual circulating supply. That's sucking out sell pressure from the system, and it causes more volatility in the markets, so that the traders that are there have a lot harder time of understanding what's going on, especially, and the liquidity providers can dominate where the price decides where it needs to be at those times. They become a lot more confident. So having you guys involved in all this stuff that's going on it's pretty bullish also, right? To have that type of partnership, for everyone to have that generalized understanding. I don't know, I would just like to see something that does incentivize the stakers, right? The ones that are creating the inflation that's happening, that are participating in the protocols, to be the ones that are rewarded during the period of time when it's having its highest inflation, where it's at its lowest liquidity, to be able to protect the price from the people who are getting it, right? This is the best time to be able to do those types of things. And then more market makers that realize that we're not just a bunch of fucking idiots, and we understand how to control these things, because we're educating ourselves every day on how it all works. As long as we have a good amount of people who really get it, then this has more longevity, higher success rate of percentage. And having you guys, like I said, it creates a higher success rate overall. You guys are going to exist anyway. There's no reason in fighting any of this stuff. It's just how much participation do you guys garner? That's, we also have to, the same thing that we're doing with Icosa and Hedron, and rating our own risk that we put out. Like, you guys have to do the same thing, of course.
Yeah,
And
totally. I mean,
you
like,
guys plan B. I like that.
yeah, participation is going to be, really fun to watch. And yeah, all we can do is put it out there, and if people want to join in. But yeah, I mean, it's completely optional, right? Like, that's the beautiful thing about DeFi. They're not. And yeah, I'm very bullish on the success of these auctions, just from my conversations with people. And that's truly the goal here, is to get HSIs bought off the market, burn Hedron, and that will benefit all stakers, benefit the system, and by locking up that liquidity for a long time, will likely have a very strong impact on all protocols as well. So I'm there, right there with you, man. I'm very bullish on this whole ecosystem right now, and like, just anxious. Like, it's only 10 days away. Like, I think
Right.
everyone's really, really excited for this. So that's very bullish time to me as well.
I would have to agree. Yeah. Now we, the communities are now completely entwined, right? Before, when it was just Hex, you guys were trying to solve a problem. Like, if someone was to ask you, what problem are you solving for Hex by existing, you guys had a pretty good damn reason. If you ask me. And Maxi was pretty successful for that. I mean, it still is, right? The derivatives, like, I'm sorry, I don't really pay attention too much to the rest of the other stuff. I know that they, like, through team, that they reward each other in some sort of, like, cohesive, like, intelligent way. So that's cool. That means that you guys are building a community all on your own of this different thing that's going on. And now that you're, going to be participating anyway, is pretty neat to me. Like, if I was always being
I love.
straight, yeah, it gets higher. You guys
Yeah,
are community members anyway, so
yeah, I love, I mean, truly, what's cool about both of our communities as well is that we truly are aligned on the goal that, like, for us to all win, Hex has, and that, that's really at the heart of it all. All of our products, like, so it's like that kind of aligning, that light really is powerful, because all these products, are designed to make Hex, like, more successful, and through that success, like, all of our incentives are aligned, and through that, like, some very innovative products have been built in order to do so in, like, very creative ways. And who knows what people are gonna build in the future. I'm surprised more people haven't noticed how Hedron and Maximus, like, have really garnered support from the Hex community versus all of their products, like, because they're not actually other products, like, yeah, okay, maybe you're going to grab some attention, and then those people will learn about Hex through your product, but, like, they're not actually building on Hex or for Hex. And so I hope in the future, like, people realize that, like, Hex is a great product to build around, and we see some even, like, more exciting products that, like, all of us, haven't even thought of yet. So I feel like this kind of, we're going through a transition of Hex being what it was like as a blockchain CD to now becoming like the gold standard of a new ecosystem. That's very exciting. And again, we're just at the start of it. So, bullish, very bullish on Hex with the past year and what's been happening. And, and I think the next big thing obviously is when PulseChain comes out, because I truly believe that, Hex is going to be the store of value for PulseChain. I think PulseChain is going to really pull in a lot of attention. So that'll be funneling and pumping all these products as well. So it's going to be a fun time.
I could not agree with you more. And what's really funny to me is I every time I come in here, I remind everybody that PulseChain is coming, and I still get reactions from people that they forgot almost, because there's so much stuff going on right now in the bear market that it's just exciting. It almost is a full-time job to be like constantly making new people aware of what's going on in the ecosystem.
Yeah. I mean, there's like I was saying, like there's so much just going on in the Hex ecosystem, like with all these products. Like, the past 10 months, if you've been following everything that's going on, like it's a lot of learning, it's a lot of time, a lot of energy. And so, respect to everyone that's here right now. Like you're on another level than everyone else in crypto right now, with just the level of like learning you've had to do. Hex in itself, it like requires a lot of learning and attention. And now it's like, this is truly an expanse of Hex. And things, things can get a little complex, but like, and you really like, the thing is too, is you don't have to be exposed to you don't have to buy into everything that goes on, right? Like some things you might not like, or, you might like one more than the other. And that's the beauty of DeFi, and is that you hold the power over what you want to do. And so far, like, the signal is that like people still truly believe in Hex, and proof by how long people are proof by like the way that Hedron was able to launch like the expansion of the Hex community into new assets that benefit Hex too. It's like, it's kind of the start of something really special. And yeah, I mean, who knows where it's going to go in the future, but it's going to be really fun.
I noticed Tonto came in.
Hey, sorry, I
Give you
couldn't hear. All I heard was you noted that I came in. I didn't hear what you said before.
Well, I mean, I just figured if you came in, I figured I'd offer you the floor if there was
Oh.
something that you wanted to say.
No, I mean, yeah, I was just listening in. I've just been getting everything ready for launch. Going back and forth with the auditor. Everything's good to go. No concerns with the security or the operation of the contract. So I'm just getting ready to deploy. We're probably going to announce a launch date pretty soon, unless Goldkey leaked the launch date that we had talked about. So we'll probably be launching announcing the launch date here in the next couple hours. And yeah, it's pretty exciting. I've actually really enjoyed kind of like the response to this, because like with the regular pools, it was kind of like unanimously supported. It's like everyone just like got it instantly, everyone liked it. But whereas with this, there seems to be, it seems that we kind of struck a chord, and there's kind of like this, like, in some ways it's like fear, in some ways it's like pushback, not for it being like a bad concept, but because it kind of approaches the system different than what kind of like the broad consensus views it as. And so I actually think that really bullish. Like it like with the regular pools, there weren't like these like kind of like psychological pumpamentals baked into it, but with Poly there is, right? Like there's this kind of like, kind of a division of what people perceive as what the system is designed for, and then two, there's this perceived risk around the executor. And so just like over time, as those, things where there are risks that people perceive, and there's a big difference between the perception of the risk and the actual effect of the risk. Whenever there's like a big kind of misunderstanding of risk, that's usually what can prime up a crazy bull run. And so like, as just the, reality sets in, the market reappraises that risk and then prices that difference in. So I actually, I've enjoyed kind of the discussion around the topic, and I think that it's like kind of this energy it's brought out in people. That to me is actually a really, really positive signal.
So my understanding is that you had made proprietary software and have your own like server node running to guarantee this. Well, it's a guaranteed advantage in the auctions. And you have that for the executor position to be able to log in to use the software and pretty much have the thought process of the poly holders in mind of how it executes its logic with smart contract use through this username and password that you give to this software. Right. I'm not sure if a lot of people are exactly aware of exactly how it works. I do, because I know that if you were to have a smart contract and try to just throw that into as a bot pretty much into the auctions, that there's a certain amount of logic that you lose the efficiency with, that you could just have an actual, like you call it, an executor that applies the logic but still uses the smart contract to do the functions.
Yeah, so basically all the executor is a set of addresses that are allowed to. They're exactly two functions that they can run. They can run the bid function for a liquidation auction that has already been started, or they can run the start bid function, which runs the loan liquidate function in the Hedron contract. So like all they can do is bid. They can't transfer the funds. They're never in possession of the funds. They can't do anything. They can't mint their own coins. Like all they can do is broadcast transactions to those particular functions, which place the bids on behalf of the contract. As far as like how what information they get about it, what in terms of like interfaces for what the executor does, who or what the executor is, that all is a secret. That's all a mystery. Because kind of like what you said with like if you were to be broadcasting some type of bid execution strategy, either through a smart contract or even like kind of crowdsourcing it on chain or letting users vote, while I perhaps could come up with a good solution for like a full like vote model that does the bid execution, there just simply wasn't time for in this with this big wave of about 6,000 of these coming out here in the next couple weeks. So they're doing it this way. It introduces very little risk while creating greater competitive advantages. Because if it's not a secret, if it's not a mystery, then that would put Poly at a competitive disadvantage. And so having a secret, mysterious executor that is not that doesn't broadcast the strategy and even has why do you think that I throw around all these crazy ideas for things that the executor could do, right? Because it's like ideally, and here I'm giving up all this alpha, but just keep in mind that like ideally no one should know what what to expect, truly. And so because if we were or if that strategy was to be just publicly broadcast, then we might as well just code it in, right? And so it's like
could you have coded it? Because I don't think you'd have enough lines of code to fit in all the variables you'd want to include.
Yeah, I mean, I had even prototyped some user voting things, but what it really came down to was, okay, if we did that, then the largest Hedron holders who already have a massive advantage over everyone else, they could just come in and just dictate bidding. That's basically what
couldn't you have during bidding, live, the understanding of how many actual individuals you're bidding against during the bidding phase, so you knew your risk profile on the competition level on that one individual HSI live as it's happening, so you could just move on and mitigate your risk to one that maybe doesn't have so much competition at that time live as that bid is happening on a different HSI for you to get involved into?
I mean, it could, and you can, program it to do anything really. But it's more like, it's like you wouldn't want to broadcast that. And yeah,
of course,
that's
you've answered the question pretty well. I think I was saying it more knowing the answer as it as it sits, that yes, you could have something like that, of course. So that's pretty intriguing that now you have the power with this proprietary software to maybe create something that unleashes the availability of access to something that you've already built. Maybe not in the profound way that the executor has, because I understand the security position of what an executor would actually be doing to themselves as one, and would have to be protected at the utmost cost, right? Because they have access to this software, number one, and the position is almost like an OA or an SA type of thing to the Poly asset as a whole, right? Because its initiative is going to be towards the holders in every single fucking way, right?
Well, there's no way to even get, there's no way to guarantee that. So users should assume that the executor may not even bid well at all.
True.
Like, and that's where, like, why we included that piece
Plan
for
B.
to be able to vote on the bidding budget. Like when you mint your poly, not only do you submit your Hedron, but you put forth a number between 50% and 100%, and that is what you're voting on the bidding budget to be. And so there's the bidding budget, and then there's a staking budget. So staking budget is like not based on the executor at all. It's simply staked through the Icosa contract. And so, it's like, and then if 30 days has passed without the executor making a bid, then the bidding is done, and then all the remaining Hedron is added to that stake. And so like the max downside is really just like that the executor really just doesn't win anything. And then it's like, okay, then it effectively just turns into a Hedron staking pool. And so
Right. Your community is now our community, and initiative moves forward.
Yeah. And while you don't know what the executor is going to do, I'm definitely building tools that can help them with, bid execution, data analysis, and part of the whole poly system with the there's something called the suggestion box, which is it's like an off-chain like data transmission tool where holders of poly and holders of the token called water, which is like a gas fee donation pool to help cover the cost of the executor to do the bidding. If you hold those tokens, you can transmit signed messages to the executor to give ideas around what to do, staking strategy, target bids. And so it's kind of like this, off-chain, cryptographic kind of like communication portal that allow poly holders to give their feedback, because it's like there is wisdom of the crowd. Like there's definitely value in there, but then the trade-off between like how to harness that like on chain, because if you had the wisdom of the crowd voting, then competitors could just be watching the voting and then like know what's going on, and then front run bids, or just like run up a bidding war, or maybe like somehow co-opt the bidding. But instead of doing that, we can have the like these private messages that are sent where you have to sign it from, you have to make a signature from an address that holds poly or holds water, and then that information can be sent off chain privately to the executor. And so it's like we can still kind of lean into that wisdom of the crowd amongst the participants. The executor can see how much skin in the game they have and maybe weigh that into their perception of their idea, and it's like a way to leverage the wisdom of the users in the system, while also maintaining that secrecy that gives it the competitive advantage when performing the bidding. So that's kind of how we like met halfway there. It's like, okay, we didn't want to build in a full like public voting thing, because it's like, okay, in that case, it's like you're basically just like, it's like as if you would have just selected like the average performer. Whereas perhaps with the executor model, perhaps there's at least the chance that you have an extraordinary performer. And then if you can, pair that performer with good tools, good ways to surface information and ideas, and other tools that can give advantages in these auctions, then that's like a winning strat. And that's really what it's about. And I think some people are kind of offended about how upfront I am about like doing this to win, but it's like these are auctions. Like there's a winner in each one, and and these are markets. These are financial markets. It's about winning. It's about growing your balance and also serving others. And so like I don't mean to be abrupt or abrasive about it, but at the end of the day, like this is a competition, and we're playing to win. And it's not like it's not meant for anyone to take offense to that. It's just that we're serious about it. And so that's just kind of our approach to it. And like all the decisions that are made, they're centered around.
And I love that winning, like it doesn't like the value doesn't get extracted. It actually gets added when bids get won, when actions are taking place, Hedron's getting burned and yields getting earned. Like it's a really beautiful system that Alex built. And we built on Hex because we believed in it, and we're building on Icosa and Hedron because we believe on it. So it's like it's a great system that rewards competition, and yeah, it's gonna be exciting.
Yeah, like literally it burns Hedron. it hoards Hedron because all of the Hedron that's earned from the HSIs, it's not getting, it's getting minted and then added to the stake. So it's like we're kind of like Maxi, where Maxi's hoarding a bunch of Hedron unstaked for 15 years. That's bonus Hedron. Like Maxi's like a huge holder of Hedron, and it's just hoarding it. It's not even staking it. So it's like already Maxi's like doing a big boost to the Hedron market. And then with this one, all the Hedron that's produced by these HSIs, that's getting staked. So maybe the ideal thing for everyone would be if all that Hedron was simply hoarded and not staked, but we are staking it. And so, that's delaying Hedron from that otherwise could hit the market from hitting the market. By not recycling back into the Icosa system, that is making the Icosa system less competitive for other Icosa sellers who do want to, like mint and do that whole thing. And so it's like, we're ruthless competitors on these HSIs, but then the side effect of it all is that one, people that are in these auctions with the intention of holding the stake, they don't get fucked on gas fees. Two, we're removing a lot of the Hedron from circulating supply, both in the short term and in the long term. And then three, we're preventing massive amounts of Icosa supply from hitting the market. And so it's just like 3 for 3 on providing great value to the to the Hedron and Icosa ecosystem. And so it's like and that's why I don't quite understand when people suggest that we're not using the system as it's intended. It's like we're exactly using it as intended. I'm literally calling the smart contract functions from the Hedron and Icosa smart contract. So it's
I think that the issue from some people are the HSIs being taken out of the auction process. And I agree with you guys that there's no way to have a relevant understanding
those people
of
buy them, right? It's like not your keys, not your cheese, right?
Right. I mean, of course. I mean, that's just the way that the game is.
That's them telling other people what to do with them, which it's yeah. I can see why people it's autumn. People are feeling that kind of.
The thing is, hold on. The thing is the people that have those feelings that are being vocal about it are community members of Icosa staking. That's where they're coming from with those types of comments and things like that, right? So I mean, to go that route with them and to like cause an adversarial type of behavior during that type with the community members is not advantageous, I guess, in that respect. But having the understanding that you guys are here and that you guys have an initiative as community members, because we're all Hexicans, right? We all get that understanding that we could just benefit from it in some sort of regard. So in saying that, I guess I have a question.
Yeah, well, before I guess I would like people to give me money for free too, right?
Of course. Well,
right. It's asking the same thing. It's like what are you giving to me? Like don't take that potential Icosa yield from me. That's mine. It's like, no, it's not. If it's yours, then buy it. If it's yours, then take possession of it and cause that to be like you see what I'm saying? Like.
Right.
So sorry, what was your question?
It's the same thing that I tell people when they come in and they want to know whether they want to participate in the Icosa staking protocols in the first place. I tell them all about Icosa and what's going on with Hedron, the auctions, and all sorts of stuff that would incentivize them to participate with the Icosa staking protocol in the first place. That's what I do, right? So I get your point of view and what you're saying about them being able to grab another object, right? So the question that I had was, and I'm just coming, from the position as an Icosa community member and a Hedron community member and a Hexican community member, right? In that general understanding. So there's no adversarial push for me. I see it as advantageous participation, right? With who you guys are as community members as well, right? So that's good. I find that good. So we all know that there's 2 events that actually happen here when the liquidations start, and it's the first event when the 5% bonusers can have the option to end their term because their minimum staking length is coming to fruition, right? And there's a lot of them, right? Like almost 1,000 people or some shit that have like a trillion some odd Hedron that's about to come out of their stakes, of their availability to have this printer that prints up Icosa in the Icosa community that gives them the individual stakehold of what's going on when inflation is happening at its biggest occurrence, right? And we haven't even had any of these events happen yet. Not one single one that all these members of this community are aware of happening. And a lot of that has to do with HSIs actually causing for the participation in the liquidations in and of themselves, right? Just in that notion, they get told about it, they know about it, it gets them excited. There's, and then they actually participate more, which is all that's required to be successful. That's it. It's just participation from the community and expanding that when these events actually happen. So now that we all understand all of that, with these 5%ers coming to the first event, where there's 2 events that happen at the exact same time, they have options. They can participate with what they already had the option to do, that they've known that they've had the option to do for a long time, or now this newly developed poly, which if they go into poly and poly holds onto it or burns some in the competition, which will actually cause more competition, everything that we've been talking about, then the stakers that don't participate completely are going to notice that their pool percentage increases quite significantly during these inflation rates, right? Until you guys are done with whatever process that you guys decide to actually initiate, whether you extend the period because you're aware of the fact that all these people are going to have liquid Hedron and you want to extract that.
We extended it by 1 day.
Extract is a terrible word, and I kind of apologize for saying that, because that sounds so horrible, but that's not. I think you guys get what I mean.
More
It's not meant to be negative.
We wanted to include the people that were the squid category Hedron stakers from the first day that Icosa launched. That was basically it's more to include those users for this in this system.
So potentially for those that are staking in the Hedron pool are going to notice that some people actually do participate in poly, right? Because they have options, and people are just going to push buttons. They're going to do their thing. They're going to do whatever it is that they decide is best for them, which is great. That's what we want. We want more availability for participation in all of the communities together, because we're stronger as a cohesive unit, obviously. And you guys are smart enough to understand and build the way that you do like that. And I think that you'll progress further, continuing to keep doing things like that incentivize the communities involved with. So yeah. So even if because you said that there's an option there that people can come in to get poly and then have it staked. So you have the opportunity to absorb this staking pool that's currently in the Hedron staking in some sort of way, some percentage, which will increase everybody that's already participating in the staking protocol in the first place. And then you go stake some of it back. Then you're back to almost net neutral again, but your yield is still increased because you actually weeded out some of the participants that could have been otherwise not been as faithful as we would assume they were. They didn't understand it to the best of their capability, which is fine. And then you guys do provide ease of use, right? They can participate without participating. You guys are kind of guaranteeing that there's participation that's happened, which in my point of view, more participation equals a higher success rate for the whole of the community as it sits. So yeah, like I said before, I don't think you were in here, but with Gold Key, we kind of established this position of understanding that some of those HSIs that are in there are significantly huge, right? With 14 million hex locked into them to the tune of 1,200 T shares, and maybe trying to nab some of those specific ones, depending on how much competition's on them, would be a good thing for the community, because then you guys can just absorb the inflation and hold on to that for 15 years instead of the potential somebody gets 300,000, the mintability of 300,000 Icosa through using the buyback function and then dumping it on market.
Yeah, I mean, we get those big ones, but also what puts the poly pool at an advantage is because it's a pool and it's co-owned by potentially thousands of people. We can afford that it actually lowers the threshold for what's a small feasible stake. And since the largest one, the one you said was 14 million, the largest one I've seen from the last time I looked was 10 million. And that's the 14 million one, that's almost 1% bigger pays better bonus. So there's really not bigger pays better really isn't a factor here, because they're all longer pays better. And none of them are higher than, I think, that one you just mentioned there. And so we could, and that's really, you should mint some poly and then message that to the executor, and then perhaps other people might be messaging them hey, we can afford to scoop up these smaller ones. Everyone thinks one thing's going to happen, and so anything could happen. Truly, I want to be clear about that. But yeah, I mean, the larger ones, that helps boost the value proposition of giving, small hedron holders access to higher quality HSIs. But because we're in the pool, it's like, because it's pooled, it gives Poly an advantage, because it's like we can afford to overpay, right? Because like we're making up for it in all the other ways, and we can afford to get smaller. So it's like, I think that's probably why I think people are mainly upset, is just because it's like, by working together as a team, there's some kind of baked in advantages there, and so
you can depreciate other people's gas tanks eventually.
Yeah, especially with water, like gas pooling, like this donation thing. It's like, the Poly contract could stick it out for a long ass time.
As one of the more vocal critics, if I could just get a couple minutes here. All right, so I guess my biggest issue would be that you're almost creating a dichotomy between the two systems. And some of it's got positives. There's definitely, you got to see it from the point of view. Okay, maybe I can appeal to your sensibility, Tanto, as a coder, right? Like, let's just say your baby, right? Your project that you develop, and like at the first big event that your shit launches, is basically its thunder is stolen by some other coder, develop something on top of it, right? I'm just trying to see it from the perspective of Alex. Like, he's busy, and he's not gonna be vocal on this because he has to remain neutral. But like, I just wish you would have done this like maybe a few months along, or like a half a year along, just to get a basis of how this would play out before going in right from the get-go of auctions. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you?
Java, to that point, I think there's an assumption that like without Poly, like who knows what this would have looked like, and like if it would have flopped, if like the auctions weren't competitive and a lot of HSIs weren't purchased, like then who benefits from that? Like, okay, now we know that like we need to figure out a solution for that. So
Right,
that,
but
that's
like
like
you're going by the assumption that Alex didn't think of 10 steps ahead of this already. You know what
so
I mean?
when I first told him,
well, let me. I wanted to hear what Java said.
Oh, I was just saying, like, I guess we'll never know because, like, maybe Alex already thought of these things, and
he right when I messaged me and told me that he had thought of this concept, and he gave me some like things that he had thought about. So like, and he retweeted it saying it was sick. He's answered questions where I've needed help. And it's like, it's like when you build, it's like the contract was explicitly built to be extensive. Like there's nothing blocking contracts from calling it. And so it's like, waiting to kind of see how it play. It's like that. It's like what would have been achieved by that? Like maybe we could have made it better. Like there's lots of ways. Like in terms of the design of it, the time sensitivity to trying to be here for this big set of auctions coming out, that made a difference in terms of what actually got produced. Maybe it could have been different had there been more time, but that's not really our approach. And and also it's like with so many of them coming out right away, it's like that's a big opportunity for participants, and that's what we want to deliver to people. And so it's like, I don't think that anyone who builds crypto contracts takes any offense to people using them per specification to interact with them. It's like if it's wasn't intended to happen, then it would be impossible to happen. Like everything that is possible is, as far as I'm concerned, intended. And so I don't necessarily see eye to eye on that topic, because like, it's like I wish someone would build, like literally I'm waiting for someone to build a team pool, like, and it's like, people can build, and that's what like, and that's something that I fully support, because that's speech, right? It's like writing code is speech, and that's that's kind of all it is, all there is to it.
yeah, I mean, it's just I like data, and getting a base metric to measure by is kind of an impossibility if all the extra stuff is built right from the get-go. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, these auctions have I mean, there've been 29 auctions so far without pooling, and it sounded like they sounded like they were primarily, people experimenting, and so it's like, we haven't had too much information on that topic, and now
Right. I mean, that's before buybacks were a thing, though.
Mhm. Yeah, but that's like a newer piece, right? And yeah, but
So
yeah,
my question, I have a question. What would you have done with that information? Like you're describing like the unhindered, like without poly. What would that like have changed in your perspective? And also, what's different from like learning that now versus when poly's over and the auctions are still going on?
I mean, what we would have learned is whether Alex's project is successful and stood on two legs on its own without being molested at all
But dude,
through outside
it's a sign of success that it can be used in this fashion, that it can be financialized. Like that's what, like when we talk about the whole point of the stake pools is that it's financializing Hex, like it's bringing new financial utility to Hex. It's like we're doing the same exact thing. So that's already a sign of success there. And these auctions just happening in the first place means it's successful, right? Like it's all entire anything. Like one, it's like it's a success that we're all alive on this earth anyways. Like it's already an astounding success that we should all be thankful for there. And then even just like everything that's done so far, like that's a success, and we're not interfering with that in any way. It's like, it's almost like we're showcasing that it's even more of a success, because it creates a scenario where it's like there's an entire use case for like individual users where like the pooling doesn't necessarily matter. Like the main benefit of the pooling is for saving gas costs for ending the hex stake. The pooling, while there are bigger pays better bonus, the Icosa staking and with Hedron staking, like that do exist, but like the main value proposition of the pooling is more related to the hex side of it. And so it's like that use case for those small users still takes place. It's like and people can choose. You don't have to join poly. I agree, it is very compelling. Like sometimes people take offense to how good of a deal it sounds like, and and the fear of not, there's certainly some FOMO, and more like fear of not participating, and so it's almost showcasing the success. It's like, there's like a use case for all these different things. It's like there's the big whale games that goes on, there's like the pooling aspect, where it's really just like the pool might as well just be one of the 500 top hex stakers, right? Because it's like, depending on how big the pools get, it would be roughly in size to people that have massive advantage over all of us anyways. And so it's like it's the pool is no different than any one individual actor. It's like, someone choosing to just buy the stakes and hold them till the hex comes out. Like it's not even unreasonable. Like if that was the case, then couldn't he have built the liquidation system or the auction system with the Icosa buyback to like make it so that once they go in, like a Hotel California type of thing, like once it goes in it can't come out? Like that could have been the case, but it's not. It's like whoever maintains possession of those keys that control those HSIs, it's their choice. And so it's
Sure.
I don't think this is diminishing from the success of it at all. Like if anything, it's showcasing the success.
Are you familiar with the phrase give an inch, take a mile?
Yes.
Okay. So like did you guys like anything? Did you come into the community and like kind of throw things around before developing this?
I mean, we built Maxi, we built the pools, we built Team.
No. I mean, like actually come talk to some admins, talk to Alex himself. You know what I mean? Just kind of get a
So
basic, like what we would think about it.
the people that I mainly talk to about crypto, these are like truly the people that I think are just, I mean, as far as people that I personally know, they're not on crypto Twitter. They're not like, so I feel like and to me, that is kind of a competitive advantage where I have high quality information that's coming outside of kind of like traditional echo chamber. But I talk to the people that I know and am on that type of rapport with, where I discuss things that I'm inventing. I spoke at length about the problem of having so many small HSIs that are going to be infeasible to end. And but yeah, I mean, I I didn't like come into the Icosa chat group and ask people what to build. I
Right.
talk that
I mean, it's a leading question. I'm kind of leading towards something, right? Because like when something was mentioned on Twitter about maybe pooling Watsas, that really perked my interest, right? Because that's kind of a different story altogether. And
Oh yeah, how we're
so
Watsa pool and name it Java after you.
yeah, no, I know you're joking about that, but like just your other response, which was it's code, and in not verbatim, but like paraphrasing is it's DeFi. We can do what we want, basically, is what you responded with.
Mhm.
So like I just hope you really consider that there would be there's not that much pushback on poly. Even for me, I see the positives in it, right? But like I just hope you really consider if you ever even try to make something non-fungible unique and scarce and turn it into another token, I don't think it's going to be received well. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, and then that's like that will be expressed in the participation.